guys, so today I wanted to do a quick video about my emulation box, otherwise known as the Hyperkin Retron5. I am aware of the issues with the source code that's running the emulations through this, but unfortunately this was one of the few options I had to do what I wanted to do with the system. So I'll be showing later how I do video capture and use this neat little system. So for the front here, you see the display that shows all the consoles that it emulates, and we have our Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance port here. One of the issues I have with it is the cartridges kind of stick out. Yes, the Game Boy Advance is much shorter, so it won't stick out quite as much, but I'm always worried with the cat hitting it or knocking it over. Several times he got his tail caught on a controller and it's cleared stuff off, but for most people that isn't really an issue. I'm covered in cat hair today. So the main reason why I got this system is right here, and that's the Famicom emulations that this does. So here we have our little cart. Let's pretend that this is a Japanese RPG. So what you can do is pop this in, and in the back here you have your SD slot that does more than just update the BIOS. You can actually load the fan translations, fan hacks, homebrews of games right onto this. And as long as you have a cart that matches the system that you're emulating, you'll be able to associate the cart with the with the file on here, or you can manually select it. So if I had like a Dragon Quest fan translation that I wanted to associate with the Dragon Quest cart, I would load it there. Fortunately, I haven't set that up yet. I will be really soon, but it's a pretty neat little function that you can do on the system. Let's take that out. For the most part, the Famicom and the NES ports are really easy to take and remove the games. The Super Nintendo and the Genesis ones, it takes good leverage to pull them out. But it's a neat little system, and yes, there are issues and drama with it, but if you have that particular need for this system, I like it a lot. One of the issues is I really dislike the controller parts being on the side. I do run most of my games with the Super Nintendo controller here. I will need a Genesis controller for the Genesis games. It just feels a little awkward playing the Super Nintendo games with it. I am not a fan of the controller that comes with it. It just feels awkward in the hands. It digs in weird points. Its triggers are kind of funny. The buttons are very clicky and loud, so I'm going to avoid that. One thing I wanted to talk about was for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. I think Game Boy Color runs on, no it doesn't. You can use the Super Game Boy with the Super Nintendo. You can't use the Super Game Boy with this. It doesn't emulate the hardware that's in that. So in a future video I got this little piece of hardware to test out my see how it looks on a modern TV with the cable running through and going to HDMI. I hope that improves it, or at least makes it a little more suitable on the screen. I doubt it, but if it does, I'll talk more about this little box next time. So let's get right over to my desk and let's play some Jackal. Here we have the setup. As I said, the Retron is hooked up to the Elgato, which is video capturing on this screen, and then the gameplay is on this screen. If you have your PC speakers on, you're going to have a kind of a dual of the bands with the lag running through there. So I muted on the PC and just turn it up on the TV. So I got Jackal, and then I'm going to, typically I use the Super Nintendo controller, so let's give it a try. I'm playing a little Jackal. You're just going to cover me in white hair today, aren't you, buddy? So you'll see the lag on this screen. It's not that bad, but if you're looking for glitches and whatnot, you'll see it really well. The upscaling, the general default settings are pretty nice. You can go through and add scan lines and whatever you want. Let's get this. And there we go. Run that guy over. All pretty straightforward. I just love Jackal so much. It's such a good game. As you can see, it sounds good. I prefer the Super Nintendo controller than the NES one for NES games and Famicom games. I did try Tetris. I found out that the music's different in that, and that's kind of neat. So I'll show the Elgato and all where everything's setting in just a second. Hopefully I can get you to go away. So that was just a quick look of what the game capture environment looks like. So running it through the Elgato, the TVs and whatnot. So let's keep you going and just take a look at the actual hardware setup. Sorry, you'll have to excuse the mess. So let's take a look. Alright, so here we have the just the system setup I have. So I have it sitting here. I had to scoot it over because the game control ports are on the side, and that's kind of inconvenient for my setup. So I have it running over. Fortunately, the Super Nintendo cables are fairly long. So in the back, I have the HDMI cable run up, hook up to my Elgato right here, and it's just velcroed on so it won't fall or slip. And then it runs to that monitor that you saw me playing on earlier, and then the cable that hooks up and does the video capture. My personal opinion is spend the extra money and get fairly good quality HDMI cables. Don't get the cheap ones. I got a pretty nice 2-pack at Costco that you can actually connect together and expand the length. So with that said, that's just my my setup and view of the Retron5. I hope that was useful to some of you guys that are thinking about it, and settled any questions that you might have. So if you have anything else you want to say, you can leave a comment below. And thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you next time.